arrays 3. So this is the last of the array task. We're going to start with a string, start with an array, and we're going to work in kind of the opposite direction of what we've done already. So we've got 4 things we need to accomplish here. We're going to remove the last item in the array, and that doesn't mean that we're going to just come up here and delete the last item. We're going to use JavaScript for this. So the next thing we'll do is add 2 new names to the end of the array. Then we're going to go and somehow read all the items in the array and add its index number at the end inside parentheses. And then finally, we'll join the array items together in a string and separate them with hyphens. So what we want to do is update the code that's already in this example file. So you want to download the arrays 3 HTML because it has some HTML in here that the rest of this code is looking for. So for instance, where it says constant section, it's trying to select the section tag from the document. So if you don't have that, this preview over here isn't going to work. You won't see the results. So first thing we want to do is remove the last item in the array. Like I said, we don't want to do that by hand. So in order to remove the last item, if you don't know what the syntax is, we can come back to the MBN learning page on arrays under JavaScript first steps. And our task here is to remove the last item. So on this page, as we scroll down, we pass the section on converting between strings and arrays. Now we have adding and removing array items. So there's 2 methods that we can use to add or remove an item at the end of an array. So we can use push to add something to the end, and we can use pop to remove something from the end. So we want to remove the last item, and we don't even have to say which index number. This command or this method knows it's supposed to take the last item off the list. So I can say my array dot pop parentheses. And so I'll come over here now to my array that now has 8. I'm going to refresh, hit my up arrow, and now because I popped the last one out, I have 7 items in my array. So now, go back to our reference here on arrays. I want to push in new values at the end of the array. So look at the syntax, my array.push, and then I can push in a comma-separated list of the values that I want to add. So it doesn't really give us any specifications on what the name should be. So we're going to say my array.push, parentheses, and I'm going to put in 2 names here. So I'm going to say name 1, name 2. Save, refresh. Now, if I look at what my array contains, it's now gone from 8 down to 7 up to 9 items. So there's name 1 and 2. So now this says we want to go over each item in the array and add its index number after the name inside parentheses. So for example, where I use 0, note this isn't really something that's taught in the MDM pages or in the book that we've been reviewing. So in order to go over each item, that's kind of our clue or our language that would tell us that we want to use a loop. Because we're going to have to loop through each item in the array in order to read the value of the name and then determine its index number. So we can use the for each method. We could also do while loop or something like that. But we can use, let's just try it. We'll see what we can do here. So first thing we want to know or do is kind of define what our output is going to look like. So we want it to say Ryu around parentheses 0, and then it says add an index number inside parentheses, and then eventually we're going to join these by with hyphens. So our first output is going to be Ryu and parentheses 1, and then later it's going to be, let's see, like this. That's it. And then this is going to continue on too. So in order to get those values, first thing we want to do is try a loop. And in the past we've done loops where it's while, so we set I equal to 0, and then we say as long as I is less than or equal to the length of something, keep incrementing until you run out. So we could say for and I guess we could do a for loop. So we want to say for, and then I equals 0, I less than something, and then I plus plus. So that's our condition in the parentheses, and then we have our curly brackets that is going to do the work for us. So I equals 0, I, do we want this to be greater than, less than, greater than, equal to? So if we're counting up, we want to stop on, well, ultimately will be the 9th item. So we want this to run no more than 9 times. So what we can do is we can probably say myArray.length. So if we say I is less than myArray.length, it will run. So right now I is 0, it's less than 9, it'll run. What happens when we get to 9 though? So if the I is 9, 9 is not less than 9. So we probably want to say less than or equal to here. That's kind of where we're going there. So now we want to output the name and its ID, the index number. So to get the name, we want to try what we've done before. I'm going to say myArray, and we want 0, and then we want 1, and we could go on down the list. But then we also want it to say 0, the value of its position, and then 1, and etc. So that's what we want. So in order to get that, we can try myArray, and then use our square brackets and our parentheses, just like we did. But inside the square bracket, we can just use I again from our loop. So the first time this runs, it's going to be set to 0. So we're going to say myArray, square bracket 0, and that should return Ryu. Now we want to kind of add this or glue this together with the parentheses and index. So we could do this just with a concatenation. So just hit plus and put the parentheses and single quotes. And we're going to have to double that up because in that single quote, I want I again. So I'm going to say plus I plus parentheses. So every time it loops, it's going to output a name and its value, name its value, name its value. So let's test it out. So I'm going to save, refresh, and I get an error. Because my string is not defined. So my string is this fourth step. So it says go over all these in step 3. It doesn't actually say to output it. So we can actually combine step 3 and 4. And we can say, do this a couple ways. So first off, we can just let's see. I guess what we could do is say my array text is equal to a function that's anonymous, like this. And that function should loop through and run like that. So then we'd say my array text like that to call that function. See if that works. Still doesn't like the fact that we don't have a my string. So let's just declare the my string here, which is down here. See if we can clear that up. Saw a little flash here, but it didn't output our content. So first off, let's actually just take the guts of that thing that we're going to try as a function, paste it in, and it says undefined 9. So we got something. It's not working out. So my array, just paste these in, test it. My array is already declared. So my array is that. We did a push. So my array, make sure we're spelling everything right, length. Undefined. So if it's undefined, it means our loops are not either being displayed here or being combined. Some settings that we group somewhere. That's probably what's happening. Okay. So get my comments here. Let's just double check. So my array. Oh, so what we need to do first is just console log these out in some form here, so that we actually go into the console where we want them to go. So there is our output. So value 0, 1, 2, 3, blah blah blah. We've got an undefined number 9. So it must be running one too many times. So we're going to say less than array length. Let's just try it. There we go. And actually it might have been because we are now running that whole function and telling it to run one more time. I'm just going to refresh the page. Let's put those equals back in. Refresh. Yeah, so by saying less than equal to, we're getting 1 extra because we actually want array length of 9, and that's actually telling us 10 because it's going 0 through 9 in the index counting here. So next thing we can do is put these all together. So it asks us to do and join the array items together in a single string. So to do that, we could concatenate. That would be one way, just like we did here. Another way would be to use another method that's associated with JavaScript and arrays. So modifying array items, creating length, convert between strings and arrays, add and remove. So shift and unshift work on the beginning. So shift is going to shift something into the first position, unshift is going to take it away. And don't see anything else. So let's do another search here. MDN join array values. See what we get. So we've got concat. That's for strings. Let's look at this array page here. So, oh look, here's an example of looping over an array. So this is using a for each method in an anonymous function to loop through all the items in the array. Maybe we'll try that in a minute. But here we go. So where we're at now is very different than the learning section of MDN. So there's Learn Web Development, JavaScript. Where we ended up is Web Technology for Developers, JavaScript, Reference, Standard Built-in Objects. So this is all about arrays. And so this might actually be a better reference for us to look at. So as I'm scanning down here, my eye kind of paused here on join. So let's see if we can find join in our list here. So join method creates and returns a new string by concatenating all the elements in the array. Yeah, that's exactly what we want. So we can say let my string equal my array, and then dot join, and parentheses. Let's see what that does for us. So it's all comma separated there. And in our practice here, it says join them with a single string with a hyphen. So right here, we can join using a hyphen like that. So inside the method, it's going to accept a parameter of how we want things joined. I'm going to put in a space, a hyphen, another space. And now we've kind of joined those values back together. But before we wrap this up, I do want to go back and look at this example here that shows us the for each for arrays. Because I wonder if that might be more efficient than what we did here. So I'm just going to say for each arrays. So the example here takes the array name, so it's my array dot for each, and then it drops into this function where see here, it's asking for the parameters here. So it's item, index, and array. So I don't really have all three of those. So we can probably just take the item and the index number and output it. So let's try that. So item, index. And the syntax here is going to be a little bit different. So we are within the for each, where we're doing this item and index piece. And then we're going to console log this out. So console.log item and index. So we're getting item and index from the parameters. And item should be the word or the value. And then index is obviously going to be the number. Let's just try this in the console real quick. Well, look at that. It output almost exactly what we wanted there. Take a look at the assignment. We want it in parentheses though. So we have index. Anything else that we would do here, it just loops over and gives us the value. So and we then concatenate. We want it to do that. So let's see if that even does anything. I doubt it will. Didn't change anything, but it didn't actually output it either. So what if we stringify these? Definitely doesn't like that now. So concatenate. Okay, well, that's less noisy there. Hey, there you go. So, two different ways that we could come up with that. I don't know that we had to put that into a function. I think we could have done it without. But then using the method for each that's built into the arrays, seems like that would be a good method. So that is a wrap on Arrays 3.